For the first time, SKIBIDI Parasite was shown to us in episode 30. The parasite was created by SKIBIDI scientist and came out of his middle. In this episode, in order to release the parasite to control the large cameraman, 2 toilets on each side held his hands, and the SKIBIDI scientist used his large robotic claw to facilitate the parasite's work and release it into the cameraman's body. The first change in this cameraman's body was the enlargement of his hands to a large size and the elongation of his fingers. Later in the video, we will discuss how, in my opinion, the presence of a parasite in the agent's body can affect him. In episode 31, we saw the first confrontation between infected agents and normal agents. Ordinary agents were even a bit frightened by the appearance of their former colleagues in a new state. The parasite-infected cameramen were particularly cruel and ruthless towards their opponents. In episode 32, we saw a real confrontation between ordinary agents and infected agents. At this point, there was no weapon that could free an agent from the parasite without causing significant damage, so the only way to fight an infected agent was to eliminate it. Again, I wanted to point out this mutated cameraman with enlarged hands and fingers chasing other agents. Also in this episode, the Speakerman Titan was infected, which gave the SKIBIDIsts an advantage for a long time. I would also like to point your attention to the fact that after the infection, the color of the reactor in the Speakerman Titan immediately changed. In episode 34, we see for the first time how an infected agent can be freed from the parasite. This method of fighting is not very effective in any case, because it requires a large number of fighters who could hold the hands of the infected agent at one moment and take the parasite out of it at another. Although a similar method will be used at the moment of Speakerman Titan's release, but we will return to this a little later. In episode 35, we see the creation of the same legendary shock cannon against parasites that will be used in the following episodes. In the same episode, it was used against the Speakerman Titan but proved ineffective. In episodes 36 and 37, we see an example of the massive use of this weapon against infected agents and their rescue. Let's skip the less important cases and move on to the main modification of this weapon to a large scale, namely the shock tank. In episode 53, we see a large armored vehicle moving through the city with agents. At the same moment, I put forward my theory that the agents are moving to the likely location of the infected Speakerman Titan, and this tank is a weapon against the parasite that has taken root in him. In episode 55, we saw that this tank was destroyed, and I assumed that the release of the Speakerman Titan was postponed indefinitely. But the battle that took place in episode 57 put everything in its place. The Speakerman Titan was saved using the method we discussed earlier. TV Woman jumped into the lair of the parasite, and Cameraman Titan immobilized Speakerman Titan so that he could not interfere with her. After the Speakerman Titan is freed from the parasite, we see that the color of its reactor changes back to red, and it regains consciousness. The main question is whether he remembers what happened all along. If not, then we can conclude that the parasite has complete control over the infected agent's brain without any possibility of escaping. If not, can the agent somehow counteract the parasite and not give in to its orders? Pay attention to the size of the parasite. At the time of infection with Speakerman Titan, its size was much smaller in my opinion. From this, I will make 2 assumptions. The first one is that during its existence in the body of the infected person, the parasite draws strength and grows in size and gradually improves. This may be true because even after the very beginning of the parasitization process, strange changes occur to the agent's body. For example, the Speakerman Titan changed the color of its core, and the Grand Cameraman grew bigger hands and fingers. My second opinion is that the parasite that was taken out of Speakerman Titan's body was inserted into it after the moment with the shotgun hit. SKIBIDI scientists decided to play it safe and make Speakerman Titan less vulnerable to such attacks. But can an agent with a parasite transplant regain control of its mind and destroy its enemies? You can write your opinion on this assumption in the comments, as I would be interested to read what my viewers think about it. My guess is that we should see some improved and stronger version of the parasite than the one that exists now. Infection with the cameraman parasite was no longer an effective weapon after cameraman scientists invented the shotgun. SKIBIDists are slowly but logically moving to the point where if they don't invent something new and powerful, they will lose. After the release of the Speakerman Titan and the significant damage to the GM-Man toilet, many questions arise as to whether the SKIBIDists are capable of a comeback. I don't know if they are currently developing a new boss, but if not, they at least need to create a stronger parasite and capture one of the titans to try to get back into the fight. Summarizing the results of today's research, we have several conclusions. The first of them is that parasitic Skibidi toilet was quite effective in the beginning, when the cameraman did not know how to fight against them effectively. The moment of infection with Speakerman Titan was the peak of the parasite's effectiveness. After the moment when the cameraman got the shock anti-parasite cannon, the effectiveness of the parasites became close to zero. After the Speakerman Titan is released, the Skibidis must come up with a new way to control the minds of the cameramen.